So, I need to get this off my chest because I feel like I'm going crazy. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post something like this, but I just need to talk to someone. A little backstory. I, 30F, have been married to my husband, Jake, 33M, for 6 years. We've always had what seemed like a perfect relationship. We met when I was in college, and everything just clicked. We've been through a lot together. The ups and downs of life, moving across the country for jobs, buying our first house, and most recently, trying for a baby. We've always had a strong connection. Sure, we've had our arguments like any couple, but we worked through them. I thought we were solid. No major red flags. At least, that's what I thought. For our 6th wedding anniversary, Jake went above and beyond. He planned a surprise getaway to a little cabin in the mountains. I was so excited, especially after the stressful few months we had with work and trying to get pregnant. It felt like the perfect opportunity to reconnect and just enjoy each other's company. The first day was incredible. We went on a hike, laughed like we hadn't in a long time, and just soaked in the tranquility. I thought everything was perfect, like the fairy tale anniversary I had always dreamed of. He even gave me a beautiful necklace that he said he had custom made, which was so thoughtful. But then, the next day, everything changed. I've never been the paranoid type. I trust Jake. He's always been honest with me. But when I went to grab something from our car, I noticed something odd. Jake's phone was sitting on the dashboard, unlocked and face up. It was weird because he's always been super protective of his phone. I've never once snooped through his messages, and he's always said that he respects my privacy too. So, why was his phone sitting there so carelessly? I know this is going to sound crazy, but I couldn't help myself. I picked it up. The first thing that hit me was a notification from Instagram. It was a message preview from someone I didn't recognize. The text said, "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again." My heart skipped a beat. Now, I know I shouldn't have gone down this rabbit hole. I should have just left it alone. But my curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the Instagram messages. It was a conversation between Jake and a woman named Carly. The messages were intimate, flirting, compliments, and even talk about meeting up again soon. It was clear they'd been seeing each other for some time. I felt like the world had just collapsed on me. My breath caught in my throat, and I could barely process what I was reading. Was this real? Was Jake cheating on me? I had no idea how to feel, how to react, or what to do next. I was frozen. Before I could even process the shock, I heard footsteps approaching from behind. Jake. He was coming back from the cabin. In a panic, I quickly put his phone back on the dashboard, trying to act normal. But my mind was racing a million miles an hour. I couldn't even look at him properly. How could I? My husband, the man I trusted with everything, was apparently seeing someone else behind my back. And the worst part? It seemed like he was actually planning to spend our anniversary weekend with me, all while carrying on this affair. When Jake got back to the car, he was all smiles. He kissed me on the cheek and asked if I was ready to go for lunch. I couldn't respond. I just nodded, trying to hold it together. But inside, my entire world was crumbling. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him right there? Should I wait until we were back home in a more private setting? Or should I just leave and never come back? For now, I decided to act like everything was fine. I didn't want to make a scene, not yet. But inside, I was torn apart. The man I thought I knew, the man I was building my life with, was not who I thought he was. I barely slept that night. My mind was racing with questions, anger, confusion, and disbelief. The whole idea of confronting Jake felt like it would break something irreversible. How could I even begin to ask him about this? What if I was wrong? What if it was a misunderstanding? But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. The next morning, everything felt off. The air between us was thick with an invisible tension. Jake was his usual charming self, kind, affectionate, the man I had married. But I couldn't shake the image of his Instagram messages with Carly from my mind. Last night was perfect. How could he say that to someone else while pretending like everything was fine with me? I tried to focus on the day. We went out for breakfast at a local cafe, where Jake smiled and made small talk. He seemed completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing inside me. I stared at my coffee, trying to come up with some sort of plan. Should I just flat out ask him? Or should I wait for him to slip up again? My hands were shaking as I stirred my coffee, imagining the confrontation. Around noon, we decided to take a scenic drive up the mountain road. The view was breathtaking, lush forests on either side, rolling hills in the distance, but to me, it all felt like a blur. The beautiful scenery couldn't mask the overwhelming sense of betrayal I felt. Every minute felt like an eternity. I was trapped in a car with a man I loved, and yet felt like a stranger. At some point, Jake turned to me with a big grin. "I'm so glad we're doing this. It's been way too long since we've had a moment just for ourselves, huh?" He looked at me with such warmth in his eyes, but I couldn't feel it. All I could think about was the message from Carly. Was this all a lie? Was I just another part of his facade? The decision came abruptly. We reached a little overlook area where we stopped to stretch our legs and take in a view. I stood there, looking out at the endless horizon, trying to gather the courage to speak up. My stomach was in knots. "Jake," I said softly, my voice trembling slightly. "Yeah," he replied, his attention on the view as he leaned against the railing. "I need to ask you something." I took a deep breath, tried to steady myself. "Is there anything you need to tell me? Anything you've been hiding?" His posture shifted slightly, and I noticed a subtle change in his demeanor. He turned to face me fully, a slight crease forming on his forehead. "What do you mean?" His voice had a tinge of confusion, but I wasn't buying it. "Jake," I continued, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "I know about Carly." The world seemed to stop. For a moment, the wind, the sound of the trees swaying, and the distant hum of cars passing by all faded. The look on his face was unreadable. His eyes widened, but he didn't immediately respond. He just stood there, frozen, his hands in his pockets. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said finally, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. It was weak, almost defensive. "Don't lie to me." I snapped, my frustration rising. I saw the messages. The Instagram messages. I saw everything. "Last night was perfect, Jake. What the hell is going on?" His face shifted then. For a split second, I thought I saw guilt in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared behind a mask of anger. "This is not what it looks like," he said quickly, stepping closer to me, his hand reaching out. "Let me explain." I backed away, shaking my head. "No, no more lies. I trusted you. I trusted you with everything, Jake." He stopped his tracks. I could see his jaw tightening, but he remained silent for a moment, his hands balling in a fist at his sides. Finally, he let out a long breath and said, "I'm so sorry, okay? I never meant for this to happen." "Then what happened?" I asked, my voice growing more intense. "How long has this been going on? How long have you been lying to me?" Jake looked away for a moment, his gaze drifting to the ground. He didn't seem to know where to start. I could tell he was struggling, but part of me didn't care anymore. The man I thought I knew was gone. This was just some stranger who was standing in front of me now. I wasn't looking for this, but it just happened. "It's been going on for a couple of months now," he confessed, his voice shaky. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. It wasn't about you. It's not that I don't love you. I do. But Carly, she gave me something I thought I was missing." We connected, and I held up my hand, cutting him off. "So, you've been having an affair, and now you're trying to justify it?" My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the tears pricking in my eyes. "You think this is something that can be explained away?" "I don't know what I was thinking," he continued, his voice filled with regret, but it felt hollow. "I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I never did. This wasn't about you. It's all my fault." I felt a strange numbness creeping in. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I was just done. This wasn't the man I had married. The man I had trusted with my heart, and my future had thrown it all away. "You've thrown everything away," I whispered, my voice cracking. "And now, I don't know who you are anymore." I turned and walked away, heading back to the car without a single glance behind me. Jay called after me, but I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. I drove us back to the cabin in silence. The whole ride was suffocating. I couldn't look at him. I didn't want to hear his apologies or explanations anymore. When we arrived, I packed my things. I told him I needed space. I needed time to think. He begged me to stay, to work through this, but I couldn't. I couldn't stay in a place where everything felt like a lie. I left him there, in that cabin, and drove back home alone. It's been a few days since I left Jake at the cabin. I haven't heard from him much. A couple of texts here and there, but nothing major. I haven't responded to any of them. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. I'm still processing everything, and the truth is, I don't know where to start. After I drove home, I found myself in a strange kind of numbness. I thought I would be a wreck, but instead, I just felt empty. Like everything I'd built with Jake was a house of cards, and with one gust of wind, it all came crashing down. I couldn't sleep the first night back. I just kept replaying that moment. Jake's face when I confronted him. The way he seemed more sorry for himself than for what he'd done. The way he didn't even fight for me. Not in the way I thought he would. I've spent the last few days in a kind of emotional fog. My mind is constantly torn between anger, hurt, confusion, and sadness. I never thought I'd be here, questioning everything we had. I trusted him more than anyone in the world. And now, I feel like I don't know how to trust myself anymore. How could I have missed the signs? How could I have been so blind? I had to try to talk to a friend about it, though. I called Natalie, my best friend from college. She's been my rock for years, and I didn't know where else to turn. It was a long conversation, full of tears and angry words, and I couldn't even get the words out at first. I didn't even know where to begin. How do you explain something like this to someone who's always seen you as a happy couple? The couple everyone envied. Eventually, I managed to get it all out. Natalie was quiet for a long time after I finished, and I could hear her trying to process what I was telling her. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm and steady. "I'm so sorry, babe. I can't even imagine how hard this is for you. But listen to me, you don't deserve this. No one does." I knew she was right, but it didn't make it easier to accept. I don't know what to do. And that part of me wants to just walk away and never look back. But another part wants to give him a chance. He says he's sorry. He says it wasn't about me, that it was his mistake. But how do I even trust him again? Her voice softened. "I know you're hurting. I know you want to believe him because you've built a life together, but you have to ask yourself, do you believe him? Do you believe his apology? Or do you just want to believe it because it's easier than facing the truth?" That hit me hard, because honestly, I didn't know. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that what we had wasn't all a lie, that it was just a moment of weakness, some temporary lapse in judgment. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been living in a fantasy, believing in something that wasn't real. The next day, Jay called. I ignored the first few calls, but then he left a voicemail, and something in his tone made me press play. "Please, just pick up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to. I love you. I'm messed up, and I will do whatever it takes to make this right. Please, just let me explain." I listened to the voicemail twice. The pleading in his voice was raw, desperate, and for a second, I thought I might cave. I almost picked up the phone, but then I remember the messages, the lies, the hurt. I remembered that day at the cabin, how he looked at me when I confronted him, not with the guilt I expected, but with a defensive look, as if he was trying to justify his actions rather than own up to them. I couldn't do it. I couldn't just let him explain it away. I didn't call him back. I didn't respond to any more of his texts either. Instead, I spent the day thinking about what I really wanted. It's hard to even know where to begin. A part of me feels like walking away is the only option, like there's no way back from this betrayal. But another part of me is scared of the unknown. What if I walk away and regret it? What if I've just thrown away something that can be fixed?